Hey guys, what's up? This is week 59. I got some reviews for you and pick a movie drawing and update, whatnot, the usual stuff. I want to start this out with another correction. Last time, I don't know, I noticed in the Sling Blade review I said he has Alzheimer's. I meant maybe like autism is what I meant. Sorry about that. So yeah, of course he doesn't have Alzheimer's, dummy. But I meant autism. So let me hop into the reviews. The first review I will be doing is from Arrow Films. This is The Addiction by Abel Ferrara. This was made in 1995. It's a black and white movie. Abel Ferrara has done a lot of movies, and he's probably one of the better or best cult directors out there when you think about his resume with Driller Killer, Miss 45, King of New York, The Funeral, a bunch of other stuff as well. He's just a very, very memorable Bad Lieutenant director, and he has a certain style. It's undeniable when he does a movie. It's always him. This is probably one of his most different movies I've ever seen. This is actually the first time I've seen this one. It's shot in black and white and it's a vampire flick. I think the only other straight-up horror movie he did was The Body Snatchers, and this probably was a little after that. So it's kind of strange to see him. He always kind of flirts with that line. A lot of his movies have like revenge elements and exploitation elements, so they all kind of feel like in the same kind of genre a little bit. But this one is definitely his most like artistic looking when it comes to like artsy shot and whatnot. The lighting and the composition is really well done. This follows the story of a college student who's studying philosophy. She's trying to get a doctorate in it, and she gets bitten one night by this vampire in an alleyway, and she of course develops a thirst for blood. She goes around, she starts turning other people into vampires. It has a nice cast in here. You'll notice some familiar faces from that like time frame in films like Edie Falco, Michael Imperioli, Paul Calderon. So there's a lot of familiar faces like this. It also has a small role by Christopher Walken, which is really good. He's always good. This one is one of these movies that while I was watching, I was like, oh, this is really well made. This is thought-provoking. It has its message. It knows what it's doing. But I'm not particularly sure if I like what it's doing or like what it has to say. And it's just one of those things that it is like semi-thought-provoking, beautifully shot. There's lots of great imagery here and shadows and whatnot, especially when she's in a hospital bed, which is a quite brilliant scene where she wants the blinds to be opened when she gets really sick. And there's a nice setup of a slaughter scene in here, which is pretty intense and well done. So all in all, I think it's a really well made and well shot movie, but there's something about its message that is a little not so bothersome to me, but just I don't really jive on it. Maybe I don't understand it as much as I would, like to. I'm not a philosophy major, and there's a lot of philosophy in here, Nietzsche and stuff like that, and I can only grasp what I know. And the writer of this movie, he knew a lot about philosophy, he knows a lot about religion, and these are things that I am not overly interested in, or not necessarily uninterested in, just not necessarily educated in, I will say for sure. The disc, this is the first time it's ever been released on Blu-ray, and probably the first time it's ever had a nice release where it's properly in its right ratio for screen and whatnot. But there's a commentary with Abel Ferrara, and man, he takes that thing. He drives it. There's a moderator on there, and Abel Ferrara is one of these guys that just does whatever he wants. He's dancing to his own tune. He doesn't care where the guy's trying to lead him. He talks about what he wants to talk. He says, "Listen, man, we did this," or he's always argumentative, or he's always doing counterpoints, or what he's always playing that devil's advocate for sure on the commentary. I enjoy the interviews on here. They got Lily Taylor and Christopher Walken, and he's involved with it too. And at points he turns the camera on the moderator and starts asking him questions, not even in like a rude way, just like an interesting way. Like Abel Ferrara constantly feels like he wants to learn things or study people and study things, and that's kind of really cool. This is one of his more interesting movies, but not one of my more favorite of his. I really have a soft spot for Miss 45, and they compare these two because they both have like female leads that were both attacked, and then they both went out and attacked other people, strangers. So has that going for it, and it's a unique vampire movie. I've not seen anything quite like it, and there's a lot of religious symbolism in here. Do I like it? I'm not so sure, but do I think it's a good movie? Absolutely. Do I think it's a nice release? Absolutely. They actually interviewed Christopher Walken, like I said on here, and that's brilliant. They talk about addiction, they talk about the metaphors and stuff, so there's a lot to swallow in the movie. There's lots of ideas in here, and, Abel Ferrara is one of the most interesting directors, to me, out there that, he does a lot of weird things and interesting things, and he always has his own unique voice at the same time by making movies that are different, but they have his signature style on there, which is something that's supposed to be, I think, that directors should do. If you watch some of these Guns for Hire, you watch 10 movies by him and you don't know that he did all of them. If you watch a Abel Ferrara movie, you know it's Abel Ferrara. Okay, and The Addiction is most certainly the Abel Ferrara movie. Well acted, well cast, well shot, and a unique take on the vampire genre. The Arrow edition, like I said, is probably the best you're going to see. I remember I had an import DVD that I never had a chance to watch, and before that it was only on VHS, and I believe the aspect ratio was all screwed up. So yeah, that's The Addiction from Arrow Films.
I see your vision in the darkness. Every time I close my eyes, I can feel the heat from your body. It won't let me sleep at night. I hear you.
Was there a lot of resistance to the idea of making it in black and white?
Well, when you make it for nothing, nobody gives you any resistance. That's the big, who gives a shit? We're doing what we're doing,
And part of the night thing, I mean, I'm a night owl anyway, but walking home New York, like at 2 in the morning, that was part of the prep.
Where you're actually seeing the fucking world. Not the same 50 people walking up back and forth on streets that are shut off.
Is evil something that has an existence in nature, or is it instead a label that people have put on nature in order to disown certain human impulses?
Yeah, no, we did see it's in black and white, on black and white stuff, so there's no going back. But in black and white, the blood is Hershey syrup.
The Addiction, coming this fall.
You came after me, you took my hand, you tried to force me into some alley. Isn't that how it went? You think you understand things, you know nothing. You understand nothing. I'll show you what you are.
I see your vision in the darkness. Every time I close my eyes, I can feel the heat from your body. It won't let me sleep at night. I hear you whistle.
Vincent is right over here.
I can't face the new day, baby, until I receive your kiss. Satellite becomes my enemy.
The next one here is Vigil. This is a New Zealand film made in the mid-'80s. I had never seen it. This is the first movie that ever went to Cannes from New Zealand, so it has like a cult status, and it has an important status in here. This one was made, I believe, in '85. This is a very strange movie. It takes place in New Zealand, like I said, so the way it's shot and the isolation are perfect. This movie almost feels like it doesn't take place on Earth, and there's some weird kind of elements going on here. It feels like almost like it's at a different time. You don't really know the time. You don't really know even the place, and it doesn't, to me, it feels very fantasy-like, if that makes any sense. It follows a story, it's a coming-of-age story about a young girl who loses her father, and her mother and her grandfather are on this farm struggling, and this kind of poacher comes around, and he kind of starts a relationship with the mother a little bit, and the grandfather and the daughter, and how they intertwine, and she sees him as something that he's not, but it's also a very, very strange relationship. And that's pretty much the entire movie there, but there's a lot of beautiful imagery, and there's lots of almost dark, not even dark humor, but there's kind of humor in here for sure, like with the grandfather and how he's always trying to fix things, and there's these weird symbolism with hawks, and it's just kind of it's shot at times like a horror movie too. There's just like horrible things that happen in it that feel like a legit horror movie. The flutter of the wings you hear because the father was obsessed with hawks, and he always wanted to kill the hawks, and at one point, the grandfather says that's the only time I've ever seen him smile is when he's pulling the hawks, putting these hawks on this fence. And there's a scene where it cuts away and you just hear the flutter of the hawk and like the screaming. And that stuff's actually pretty it works very well, to be honest. But this one is a strange movie. I want to watch it again to kind of fully grasp exactly what I feel is going on here. But to me, it was just kind of a strange, light fantasy coming-of-age movie that was shot really well, and it was in a beautiful location, and I liked a lot of the stuff going for it, but I just didn't grasp everything that was in it. There's like an archival interview with the director on here. There's an appreciation of the movie on here by a film historian. So it has a couple features on here which are nice, and it's an interesting movie. It's just something something that I think that I would need to see a couple more times to appreciate more, or you know, understand a little bit more what's going on, unless that it's pretty straightforward, just well-made movie, because it is that as well. But there's some little like things in here that are kind of surprising, and they don't hit you over the head with it either. It's right there in your face, but they don't have to say it 100 times either, and that's always appreciative. So it's a pretty cool movie as well. Not a favorite movie of mine or anything like that, but something that is interesting. And I like some of the stuff that the little girl hears from the characters in the movie that are just like, oh wow, I would definitely not say that to a little girl. But it's a pretty visually appealing movie for sure, and that's Vigil.
Question of precision, timing, strength.
It's very rare that as a critic you get to see something before anyone else does.
When a feature film company moved into North Taranaki recently, it brought entertainment, employment, and money with it.
I hate to stray into such territory, but I almost feel he is the only authentic religious filmmaker in New Zealand.
Keep her in your sights, Toss.
Granddad? Granddad? I think I'm dying, Granddad.
Aren't we all?
Okay, the next one here is from Artsploitation Films. This is Summer House. And, you know, Artsploitation Films is usually the label that takes movies that are well-made or unique or different or just so batshit from different countries that nobody else wants to touch and puts them out. Like stuff like The Treatment, which had a really, really disturbing subject matter about pedophilia. And this one has a similar subject matter. So that's why I think that they probably tackled it and put it out, because, like, The Treatment is an excellently well-made movie, but it has these disturbing subject matters that a lot of companies be like, we don't want anything to do with that. And I think that that's what their deal is. So, and they do this from all around the world. Summer House follows the story of these a couple business partners, but it really focuses on the one guy and his family. And this is the disturbing kind of thing. He's in a married relation. He's married and he has a kid, but he's a homosexual. And he has you know, kind of like a boyfriend on the side that he has come in and he sleeps around. And he becomes infatuated with this business partner's like 14-year-old son, and or 12-year-old son, and he's obsessed with him. And he starts to watch him, and the damage that he does with him and his wife, and the way they treat each other, and what he's doing to his wife by doing this kind of thing, and she knows something's wrong, he doesn't want to touch her. You see the damage, the psychological stuff that happens to her, and it starts to play effects on the daughter, the whole thing like that. And it sets up this whole end that you don't see coming, but you understand when it happens why it happened, and you're like, oh wow, you know, there's circumstances for your actions. And this is what this movie's about. There's a lot of disturbing things here, and the lead guy does a really good performance because he creeped the shit out of me. He's really, really gross. And it never goes fully sexual in here, but the way he acts around the kid, the way he smiles, the way he manipulates him. But it's not all that it seems. Something in here, you know, somebody knows a little bit more than they lead on. And it does seem to be a little drawn out at times, but for the most part, it is just kind of a disturbing family drama with, you know, fairly good acting and a disturbing subject matter, to be honest. That's pretty much what it has going for it. And there's a couple moments that are pretty intense. And it's shot not in like a dark, twisted way. It's shot pretty, I mean, like the lighting and stuff like that looks pretty much like, I don't want to say flat because it's not flat, but it's just not like always dark or gritty. It just looks like it's from a regular, like, you know, every Hollywood movie or something, or a typical movie. So it has that going for it, but it has all these like dark underbelly and, you know, suburbia and upper upper middle class. They're probably a little higher than that. They do seem to have money, which is plays into the plot as well. And, you know, some classism here and stuff like that. And it's just a strange movie. There's a lot of features on here, interviews with, like, the filmmakers and composer and stuff on there. So if it interests you, you might want to check it out. But maybe check out the trailer and see if it's just, like, pushing that limit for you. Because I can imagine that this isn't going to be for everybody. Like I said, it's not overly graphic in detail or anything like that. But just it's very uncomfortable to watch. It's not pleasant kind of to watch. It kind of makes your skin crawl for sure.
Wie viel? 138.000.
138.000?
Gibt's Probleme beim Projekt?
Ich hab Scheiße gebaut. Du kennst aber Elisabeth.
Ich gehe mit ihr in eine Klasse.
Sei doch ein bisschen nett zu ihr, ja? Freunde dich an. Besuch sie öfters.
Wie alt bist du?
22.
Arbeitet dein Vater immer zu Hause? Nein, nur heute. Wieso? Nur so. Au.
Würdest du mir einen Gefallen tun?
Was ist es denn?
Alles Gute zum Hochzeitstag. Geh mich umziehen.
Mir geht's scheiße! Hau ab!
Wie lange seid ihr schon verheiratet?
12 Jahre.
Sie macht mir manchmal Angst.
Wer?
Na, Mama.
Weil die nicht verstehen, dass wir befreundet sind.
Aber wir sind doch mehr als Freunde. Wo ist denn dein Papa? Was geht dich das an? Eine ganze Menge.
Okay, the next one here is by Vinegar Syndrome. This came out, I believe, in their June package. This is a Deadmate, aka Grave Robbers. I had never seen this one. I had heard about it. I had the old DVD with Monstrosity by Milligan on there. It was a double feature, and never had a chance to watch it. So when I heard Vinegar Syndrome was doing it, I was like, I'm going to wait because they're going to polish this thing and make it look amazing. And they did exactly that. This is an oddity. This is a curio, I guess they would call it, or I know that the guys at Vinegar Syndrome would call it that. And it is. It's a weird, weird movie. It is a dark comedy, offbeat, really weird, and just strange all around. We have this woman who has some sort of blood phobia. You learn this from narration. And she works in this cafe. She used to be a prostitute. This guy comes in and says, will you marry me? She goes with him. They drive away in a hearse. He runs this funeral parlor. She gets to this small town and realizes not everybody is right. There's something up with the dead bodies. There's some weird science thing going on with the bodies. And there's some weird sexual stuff going on in this town as well. She starts to dig deeper and she realizes what's going on. And what's going on is a fairly disturbing thing here. There's some funny stuff with the paramedics. It's just actually really gross at the same time without spoiling too much. And there's also, you know, some nudity in here, but they're dead bodies, so that's really kind of a little bit unpleasant. So the whole plot of the movie involves a sexual thing with dead people. That's all I'm going to say. I just gave too much away, but I think it's fairly obvious from the title. But what this movie does do is it does feel a bit slow, and it does feel a bit repetitive at times, but it does paint a nice, like, city, a little small town feel, evil small town, and I kind of like that. And also it does open up with some gore gags right off the bat to catch your attention. It opens, these corpses are reaching in, or these hands are reaching in, pulling at this girl, and you think they're reaching for her breast to expose her breast, but they just rip her skin out and pull her heart out, and I was like, that is pretty intense right off the bat. So it catches your attention. And you know, later on they throw in nudity here and there and some weird lines. This whole movie has like this AIDS message thing going on, and one of the lines in the dialogue, literally, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I slapped myself in the head and just was like, all I want to say is we can't get AIDS because they're dead, or some line like that. But absolute ridiculous line, absolutely ridiculous premise, but it's well aware of its ridiculousness and its offbeatness, and it plays into its offbeatness almost to its detriment at times, like where you're like, okay, we know, but at times it goes over it to it almost gets too stupid for its own good. Just, I would particularly say the ending is what gets too stupid for its own good. The kind of voiceover, it's too much for me. But besides that, like I said, they do end up doing some nice gore gags. The acting ranges, some of it's all right, some of it's bad. I think some of them are decent. It's a, you know, ranging acting here, over the top acting to a certain extent, and that's probably what they were told to do, or they're probably going for that certain deal here. But there's some good effects. There's some spoofy, like, not necessarily spoofy, but zany kind of characters for sure. And one of the motorcycle scene involving a ghoul is really fun and really great. Reminds me of the Tales of the Crypt scene, but just more elaborate, from the original 1972 movie from Amicus. So it reminds me of that a bit going on. The ending, I pretty much hate the ending, but that's what I'm going with on there. There's a funny song in here which goes into the plot of the movie, and on the disc there's a commentary with the director, and he seems to enjoy the movie quite a bit, and he talks about, you know, the comedy and how he worked for years and stuff cutting trailers together, and how he directed a bunch of movies and this low budget stuff. And there's also an interview with him on here which is 18 minutes long, and he talks about his career and how this came to be. It's all informative, and it's pretty cool that you learn a bit about filmmaking, especially, you know, on like a semi-indie, like Hollywood kind of scale. Like, and they talk about how this one was just basically didn't hit theaters, or very limited, all these movies, and they just went straight to tape. But it's funny because these movies are shot in widescreen and they look really good, and then they just went straight to tape. But yeah, it has a nice atmosphere, and it has some nice moments. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but no movie really is. I'm not in love with it, but I'm never disappointed when I watch a Vinegar Syndrome title, because they make it look so good, and they always make a nice package to, you know, keep you intrigued, and you know, and I'm definitely not disappointed I watched it. I'm glad I watched it, and it's one of these movies that I can cross off the oddball list that I wanted to see for a while. That's Grave Robbers.
Death is always a tragedy. And the death of a young person, this young person, this beautiful wisp of a child.
You know, Nora, you should have listened to Reverend Collins. He wasn't one of us. He was probably the only person who could save you, and you killed him.
Oh, come on. Let us have a look. Figure out. What's the harm?
Donna, thank God it's you!
Same nightmare again, hun.
Okay, the first one we're going to review together is Deadly Daphine's Revenge by Vinegar Syndrome. This was one that Troma picked up and distributed years ago, but I don't think they actually made it. It's far too serious for a Trump movie. But this was also called Hunting Season. Both titles are not appropriate at all. This is weird. This is a weird movie, guys. This is a smorgasbord. I don't even know how to approach what happens in this movie. Okay, what we have here is a group of, basically, a guy, a racist, rapist, dickhead, who has a lot of money, is going on a camping trip. He brings his friends and his brother-in-law, his half-brother or something. They don't really want to go. One of them kind of does. He picks up a young girl and rapes her. None of the other guys, they're all guilty by a certain extent. One by not doing anything, one by having statutory rape with her, but having sex before statutory rape, and one who basically backs out at the last minute, sexual assault. So it's a varying degrees of guilty parties associated with this woman, and then it turns into, at first you think it's going to be a rape revenge movie, because you hear Deadly Daphne's Revenge, even though this girl's not Daphne. That's even more convoluted. But what happens is it turns into this kind of courtroom drama, or basically this, it's not even in courtroom either. It's behind the scenes, people arguing what they're going to do, why this person's guilty, and you realize basically the effects of what a rape has on somebody, and what a rape has on people that are accused of it that not necessarily committed a rape. Even though one horrible person basically was the catalyst for all this to happen. It is kind of silly and kind of goofy at times too, but it's not purposely silly or goofy.
No.
The main bad guy is actually a really good actor, only because he's playing a larger-than-life monster, and somehow he makes it seem like the guy's real. I don't even know how to explain this guy. Within the first 10 minutes of the movie, you realize he's a pervert, a bigot, a racist. He's just an animal. And he treats everybody like garbage and pushes them around. I don't know what else to say about this movie.
Where can we go with it? Yeah, it's not a courtroom drama because
there's no courtroom.
They literally never go to court.
But it's all set up to be a courtroom drama.
Right.
And it's all set up to be a rape revenge, but none of it happens.
It's the lawyer talking to like the prosecutor and
yes.
like it's like a million like backroom deals that
yes.
It's good.
It's I don't know if it's
no,
good.
I don't even know if it's good. It's not good.
But one of the characters who's not really guilty of anything is drugged through the dirt because the prosecutor basically tells this woman that you have to press charges on all these guys, even though all of them aren't guilty, because no one will believe you that just one is truly, really, a couple of them are guilty. No one's going to believe that. So they put prosecution against this one guy who's just this kind of wormy, nerdy guy, and his scene, his breakdown is the best part of the entire movie. It's actually a really great scene. Besides that, there's this strange opening part of the story that talks about this, why the character, the bad guy, is basically the way he is, involving an African-American woman he had an affair with, and that plays into the end. It's ridiculous, to be honest, and I believe that the person is wearing blackface. I don't think they're actually African-American. They say that she's half, but she's not even. It's just a white woman with blackface on.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to... It's a fairly uneventful movie, but at times... it feels like just a Lifetime movie on crack.
It does, and the would you call him a villain?
Which guy?
The guy that does the raping.
Yes, he's a villain.
Okay, yeah.
Why would you even ask that? Of course, he's a villain.
Like the movie kind of like it implies that he's like been in some sort of legal trouble before, and he always finds a way to kind of like weasel his way out of it. So,
well, he has money and connections.
Yeah, and so he, like, there is a backstory with Daphne.
Yeah, which plays in about 10 seconds of the whole entire movie.
It does. But who's the officer?
Which officer?
The one that's Daphne's.
Oh, I can't believe James Avery's in this movie. Very young, from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. His scene is great. Like, he walks in, and the cops, he's a cop that's doing the arresting officer on him, and he's actually brothers with Daphne, and you realize that this guy screwed over Daphne years ago. So, like, when he's arresting him, he's like, "You white piece of shit!" He's like, everybody's racist in this movie. It's so weird. And the director is actually one of the actors in the movie, and he, like, set himself up with the young girl to have a relationship, even though he's double her age. So it's like, it's kind of a vanity project in that sense, but it's not necessarily a vanity project. And you actually don't hate that guy for some reason, even though he committed statutory rape. He's the only halfway decent person in the movie, because the prosecutor's a piece of crap because he's prosecuting people that don't. One of the guys didn't deserve it at all.
Right.
And then on top of that, the girl is lying to basically catch one guy. So she's not all that likable. And then, of course, one's a monster rapist. One gets pushed around into almost committing rape. One's committed statutory rape, most likable guy in the movie. And one is just a pushed around baby that basically is doomed because of the set of circumstances he's in. So it's like a bunch of varying pieces of garbage, like stumbling through a movie, but you don't hate all the pieces of garbage for some reason. I don't know why.
Right. You know, a lot of the people are technically, I guess, guilty by association.
Yes. And Daphne's even terrible.
Yeah.
Because they explain what Daphne did. So Daphne's a monster too. So it's like, I don't want any of these people. I don't even know what it... And then it all has like a Lifetime feel. Like I was like, oh, this is going to be real sleazy, because it starts off real trashy. Like he's picking up the girl in the RV. He's like, we're going to have some fun, boys. And this guy is like, I don't know, he's not a bad actor, but he's ridiculous. He's like a cartoon, as realistic as you can get a cartoon. He's like, oh, fuck, guys. He's like, it's just like, I don't know how to explain him. Like, what'd you call him? We said he's like an evil John Goodman or something?
Kind of, yeah, because he reminded me like the John Goodman from Big Lebowski, but like
a rapist version.
Yeah, if you took all the
and a racist rapist version,
like
of him.
Aspects of him, and like intensified it, like dialed up to 100.
Because I don't know if Walter is actually racist.
I don't think so.
He does say the horrible stuff about Germans.
He does.
He's like, I told that crowd I don't want to say. So he kind of is, but I don't know. Deadly Daphne's Revenge. I don't know what to say with this. There is an interview with one of the actresses, the one who played the secretary in here, or the receptionist. I don't remember what she was in the movie. But it has some weird performances, and all around it's a weird movie that isn't a horror movie, and isn't a drama, and isn't a Lifetime movie. It isn't really anything. It's just there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fresh from today's headlines, a hideous crime has been committed.
You bastard. You bigoted, perverted, filthy bastard!
I ain't too crazy about you either, slut.
And now, the vicious, violent bully is in trouble.
I'm getting busted in here. Couple that redneck bastard myself. I'd bust his ass right now if it wouldn't make trouble for the DA in court.
In trouble with the law.
You're under arrest.
In trouble with his friends.
I had $1 million insurance policy on a shopping mall canceled. My business and reputation are going to be ruined, and there's nothing that you or your lawyer can do about it.
In trouble with the mob.
That's why you're in this mess, because you're stupid.
Cost you $20,000. 10 up front, 10 when the job's done. You just better hope she doesn't run in front of any cars for the next few days. Sure, Jake.
But worst of all, he's in trouble with Daphne.
Come on in, honey.
His crime is the most atrocious, but Daphne's revenge is the most unspeakable. Deadly Daphne's Revenge. Finally, a horrifying, terrifying, shocking, action-packed motion picture that goes beyond anything you've ever seen before. Remember, there's nothing more dangerous than a woman on a rampage of revenge. Deadly Daphne's Revenge. Men will be shocked. Women will understand. If revenge is sweet, then dying is a piece of cake. Deadly Daphne's Revenge. The action suspense film that proves once and for all that women seeking revenge are the most terrifying animals on the face of the earth. Deadly Daphne's Revenge. You'll hear torture. You'll see rape. You'll understand violence. You won't believe your senses. Deadly Daphne's Revenge.
Okay, guys, the next one is the VHS Voyage. And I don't have the VHS, which is quite unfortunate, but I do have a bootleg. I know it's never been released on DVD anywhere. This is Elves. With Dan Haggerty from Grizzly Adams and the classic movie The Chilling. Chilling's not classic. But okay, Elves. For years and years, it's a little creature movie, so I'm interested in those. Everybody's like, oh, it's a boring piece of crap. It's terrible. It's terrible. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll watch Elves for the VHS Voyage because, you know, I've always wanted to see it, but I've heard bad things. This movie is not boring. It's not good, but I love it because it's vastly entertaining. It's what the definition of a good bad movie is, really.
Yeah.
It's the definition. The plot.
Which plot? Which part of the movie?
I mean, it's all part of the plot. I don't know how to explain this plot without sounding like a raving lunatic. Okay, Dan Haggerty is an ex-cop, forced to be a security guard, forced to be a mall Santa. There's these girls who are throwing a party that work at this store, this convenience store. It all takes place on Christmas time. There's this weird book that one of the girls' grandfathers owns, who's doing like a Dr. Strangelove. He's in a wheelchair and he's really weird and German. And this movie's self-aware of its goofiness for sure. It's playing jokes the whole time. Anybody says otherwise, I think they're wrong. I think this movie knows it's goofy and it's playing into it. So they steal this weird, what is it, like a Norwegian or Scandinavian evil cult book. I don't know what it is.
It's a magic book.
A magic book. But
they're witches.
They're not witches. They're elves. But and there's only one damn elf in the movie. The movie should be called Elf. But there's only one of them. But regardless, they do this spell in the woods and it brings back this elf. But what ties into this elf is this weird Nazi cult crap. And the Nazis want the elves to mate with them to create the master race. That's the plot here. So they want this girl who's been breeded her whole life into mating with this elf so they can create a master race. It's up to Dan Haggerty, the ex-cop, ex-security guard, now mall Santa, to stop the elves. Dan Haggerty makes this movie. He's charming. He is funny. He is soft-spoken, but a burly badass. Mm-hmm. The Nazis are hilarious. They're the bad guys. They're cheap. They're so lame, but they crack me up. And the movie is horribly mean-spirited.
Yeah,
it was like when some of the people get killed, some of the characters out of nowhere, the bad guys are horrible. I'm just like, what? Or, like, it's the type of movie where the original mall Santa goes into a room, tries to feel up a girl, gets slapped, and then he's like, I'm going to my room. And he starts just like laying out a bunch of cocaine. You're like, oh, we're doing this. This is just the type of movie. And then he's murdered viciously, lied out on the floor in a Santa suit, covered in coke with blood all around him. This is the type of movie you're into. It is a very mean-spirited but stupid and ridiculous Christmas horror movie.
Yeah, and that well, it doesn't even like, it becomes like a Nazi movie, like.
And then the elves there's shootouts that are actually, for a low-budget movie, not that bad. There's nudity in here. A decent amount of gratuitous nudity.
A good amount of nudity.
Which is appreciated for this movie. And the elf. I don't know. There's like, sometimes he's just a head. You can tell it's just a guy with like a head on there and he sticks behind things. It's like, you never see the elf. I don't think you ever see him in full frame. Like, you see his feet, you'll see his arm, or you see his head. I don't think you ever see like an animatronic or like anything. At one point you see a little bit, but it's just like cobbled together. And its eyes don't move, but I don't really have a problem with stuff like that.
No.
I think it's fun.
I don't think they made a torso. Like, just it's like chest up, or you get like arm shots, or like even like leg shots, like point of view of his legs. That's such a weird thing to do.
I think it's just really like a giant glorified finger puppet. And it's like, it's like an arm puppet, just a head. It's better than the puppets in Rock and Roll Nightmare, but...
And he looks good. I mean,
he don't look that good. He don't look back of the case good.
Yeah,
but he looks kind of. And they show two of them on here. There's only one elf in this movie. This movie's called Elf. I'm changing the title. Of. Yeah, they never show any of them.
One. Well, no, it's just one.
Oh, can we talk about the mom?
Yeah.
I've never wanted to kill a character more in my life than anything. Within the first, 20 minutes of the movie, spoilers for Elves here, but she takes away this girl's savings that she worked for, and she murders her cat for no reason. She's a monster. Like, when she died, I cheered. I was like, yeah! Like, yeah!
But then you find out why the mom... Well, it doesn't excuse her behavior, but then like something comes into play with the mom and the grandpa.
You realize why she's an animal.
Yeah.
And the grandfather, too. They're both monsters.
And you realize that this whole family just kind of needs to be put out of their misery.
Yes.
Because it's just a mess.
It needs to end it.
Which, it made me wonder, I don't want to spoil, the mom thing, but, who'd her brother come from?
Yeah, because we're watching it and we're like, okay, this is gross, but... And then I said this to you, I was like, Think the brothers the same boat?
Right.
So like he went back and he already succeeded in the first part of it by having the the lineage correct, and he's like, I'm just gonna do it for the second time for good measure,
just to be safe.
And by the way, the grandpa acts like a poor man's Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the wheelchair and he's like, the Nazi cult groups. He's a Nazi.
Doesn't one of the other Nazis feel the fake for Day of the Dead?
Oh, they do. They do. What's he say?
It was like, when there's no more room in
hell, they call it Storm
the
the Dead. Yeah. No more room in hell, the elves will walk around. The best scene in the entire movie is when Dan Haggerty gets some information by a librarian that this other librarian or historian or doctor knows about elves. And so he barges into his house on Christmas Eve, this well-off doctor, and his family's sitting there. He's ready to carve the turkey, and he's like, all right, this part is brilliant. And it's actually genuinely funny, and it's supposed to be funny. He's going to cut the turkey, and Dan Haggerty burst in, and he's like, tell me about the elves. He's like, what is going on here? I'm calling the police. He's like, just relax, dude. Just tell me about them. And he's like, all right. And then he gives these two theories, and his kids are just sitting there staring at the theories. And then all of a sudden the guy looks over and he's like, elves. And then it just cuts for I don't know. I want this Blu-ray so bad. We want Elves on Blu-ray.
Dan Haggerty was amazing in it.
Yeah, he's like a genuine hey, I want that guy as my uncle.
Yeah.
Dan Haggerty should be everybody's uncle. He just died a couple years ago.
Did he really?
Yeah. The only one I've seen him in was The Chilling, which is not good, but I would put it in a similar vein to this movie, actually. I actually think Elves is better than The Chilling. But
maybe you gotta do a Dan Haggerty week.
Dan Haggerty week. It's I only got 3 movies with Dan Haggerty. But I would recommend Elves. They're not working for Santa anymore. He's not working. There's only one elf.
Yeah.
Fucking bullshit. I think I saw this trailer when I was a kid, to be honest. And I remember wanting to see it so bad, but I think it was one of those movies where my mom was like, you're not watching that. She probably saw the trailer and it looked really sleazy. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the town bloodthirsty elves are about to get down.
A bloodthirsty elf is about to get down.
Yeah, no shit. I'm going to read the back just because I think it's probably going to be hilarious. An innocent romp in the woods turns... It's not innocent. You had a cult book. You're raising elves. An innocent romp in the woods turns into a hellish nightmare when 3 young girls accidentally awaken an army of evil elves genetically created by a neo-Nazi mad scientist during World War II. These hideous creatures don't work for Santa. They have a special mission, to mate with the Virgin and take over the world as a pint-sized master race. Dan Haggerty, Grizzly Adams, stars as Mike McGavin, a department store Santa who must expose this unholy force and stop the gruesome terror before the elves destroy Christmas. There's one elf, and it was so much better not knowing any of that crap when I went into it. I just ruined this movie experience for you guys. Because I was just watching and I was like, what? I remember there was Nazis. That's all I knew about.
I thought that Dan Haggerty was going to be the actual literal Santa, and at the end of the movie, he was just like, I'm Santa Claus the whole time. But, the real Santa, because, that's how all Christmas movies work. Is, there's the bum that everybody's kind of mean to, and it turns out he's Santa Claus. And they find the magic of Christmas again.
Have you ever seen Christmas Evil?
No, is that the same story?
No. I'm not going to spoil it, but Christmas Evil has the best, it's similar, it has the best ending to any Christmas horror movie ever made. I don't even know if it's a horror movie. It's just the craziest Christmas movie. The best ending ever. If you don't see the truncated version, but...
Magic of Christmas.
Magic of Christmas, Elf.
Master Race.
Master Race, Elf. I'd rather watch this than a Will Ferrell movie.
The Will Ferrell movie with Elf?
Just called Elf.
Is it just called Elf?
Yeah.
That's why they call it Elves?
No. This was made in 89 or 88. That movie's made 2003.
Yeah. I don't... Will Ferrell's...
I don't know. They're just trying to cash in on Gremlins here, okay? Let's face it. That's why it's called Elves, as it takes place on Christmas. I don't know why they involve Nazis, but I don't care. But regardless, enjoy it.
AIP Home Video. An innocent romp in the woods turns into a hellish nightmare when an evil force is accidentally awakened. Action International Pictures presents the gruesome holiday shocker, Elves. They're not working for Santa anymore.
I had a rough day at work. Santa got murdered.
Their mission, to mate with a virgin and conquer the world as a pint-sized master race.
I'm saving it for someone special.
Dan Haggerty stars as Mike McGavin, an ex-detective working on hard times.
First you send and then you die.
She is the most important person on Earth. From her will grow the new order.
Santa must expose this unholy force before the elves destroy Christmas.
Jesus Christ.
Elves. They're not working for Santa anymore.
Okay, guys. The next one coming up is the Weekly Western.
Let's go. Why not?
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Say when.
Feel I'm knocking up on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
Hey, Kitty, you bastard! It's you and I!
I don't deserve this.
It is The Great Silence by Sergio Corbucci with Klaus Kinski. And Luigi Pistelli's in here as well. Yeah, this one came out from Film Movement. I've been wanting to see this one forever. You know, everybody said, oh, it inspired, what is it? Hateful Eight. It is, it's a spaghetti western in the snow. You got to check it out. And I was always interested in checking out. Sergio Corbucci did Compañeros and Django. He's kind of like the guy after Sergio Leone. Okay, let's get into the plot of this one. We have this silent gunslinger who goes into town. He is protecting these kind of guys that were like fighting a range war, and these guys are waiting to get clemency from the governor. So they're waiting for it. They're out in the outskirts of this town, and they're robbing to survive, to eat. And there's a bunch of bounty hunters around picking them off for, you know, money, of course. One is Klaus Kinski. He's pretty much the leader. He is crazy. He is weird and evil. Luigi Pistelli is basically the guy who collects the debts and pays the debts and gets a cut of it. And you guys know Luigi Pistelli and Klaus Kinski were both in for a few dollars more. The Sergio Leone movie. Klaus Kinski's in dozens of movies. Venom, Creature, tons of stuff. The Nosferatu with Werner Herzog, tons of Werner Herzog movies. And Luigi Pistelli's in stuff like Bay of Blood by Mario Bava, and Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key by Sergio Martino, and of course he's for a few dollars more, Good, Bad, and Ugly, and of course this one. So those two are the actors that I was mostly focused on and enjoyed seeing. I will say about this movie is it's got great scenery, it's got a great setup, it's got great bad guys. This is one of the ones that has some of the best bad guys ever. Even if they're in the movie for a little bit, they focus on them very well. They're very distinguished. It feels like a Sergio Leone crew of bad guys. And almost all spaghetti westerns have an amazing set of bad guys. But Klaus Kinski steals the show. Let's be honest here. His eyes are piercing. His dialogue, his demeanor, the way he gets things that he wants, how he tricks people, and how he gets the upper hand is brilliant. Frank Wolf's also in this kind of as a comical, like, but mean sheriff, and he pops up in some giallos here and there, so you'll recognize him. But I do like this dynamic between the silent gunfighter, this mute gunfighter, I guess I'll say. Well, great silence. They call him Silence. The silent gunfighter, the bounty hunter, and the sheriff, and also the debt collector, the guy who collects the bounties, or pays for the bounties. So you have like this four-way of people, and they're all not particularly great people. And then you have the guys outside in the range war, basically waiting to be pardoned. So you have all this going on, and there's this small town, and everybody's involved, and everybody hates Klaus Kinski and wants him out. So it sets up a lot of possibilities, and at the end, it all comes together. And by the ending of this movie, it kind of blew my mind. I was coming in at a fairly average. I was like, this is a good spaghetti western. But the ending of this movie, my jaw dropped. That's all I'm going to say. I was like, that's what you're going to do? And I was like, I feel terrible. That's all I could say. Usually in these, it's not that dark of an ending, but that is the darkest spaghetti western ending I have ever seen. I mean, Cutthroat Tonight's not spaghetti. Is it a Spanish one, Spanish western? But that's pretty dark too. But this is dark. This is dark. But there's alternative endings on here, one of which is completely opposite, and another which is kind of in the middle. Alex Cox, the director who did Repo Man and Straight to Hell, another crazy western, is involved with the special features. He talks about spaghetti westerns, and he talks about the alternative endings and stuff like that. So that's a nice thing on the disc. I would recommend checking this one out. The music's great. It's Ennio Morricone, I believe, so it's a winner there. Without spoiling too much, it's well shot. It does it's typical the way it's made, except it's not typical the way it plays out, and it's not typical in its weather conditions either, obviously with the snow. So it's very nice seeing all of that, and it's got good characters, and it even has like a nice reveals where you don't typically expect them to be revealing moments, and then you're like, oh, that's what's going on here, and you get more in the story and stuff like that. So I think it's really worth checking out. I think it's a pretty cool spaghetti western. It is a bit long, almost running 2 hours, but I liked it, and I think it's one of the better ones I saw for sure. I prefer it over Django, if that tells you anything.
C'è un uomo che fa tremare i cacciatori di taglie quando lo incontrano. Lo chiamano Silenzio. Perché dopo che è passato lui, resta soltanto il silenzio e la morte.
Chi è quel tipo spiritoso col cappello da prete e con la pelliccia rosa? Tigrero, uno che è meglio perderlo che trovarlo.
Si tratta di Tigrero. Ha ucciso mio marito. Ditemi quanto volete.
Senti, Muto, speri che io estragga per primo, vero? Perché non ti lascerò fare il furbo più di me. È un nemico dei bounty killer. È un illuso che crede di rimettere a posto il mondo con la pistola. Ma è venuto per uccidere te.
Giorno potreste incontrare uno più svelto di voi.
Sarà un giorno molto divertente.
Reserve's got nothing to do with it.
When you have to shoot, shoot, don't talk.
Okay, the pick of the movie this week was by Jonathan Wilhelm. He picked Blade of the Immortal by Takeshi Miike. This is his 100th film. I'm going to be honest, like I said, I don't know all Takeshi Miike's work. I have a bunch of it. I've only had a chance to check out a couple. One of which is Ichi the Killer, which I saw way too late, and I thought the CGI was so dated. I was also like 20 when I saw it, so bear with me. Blade of the Immortal feels like the story of kind of like the samurai True Grit, where this young girl's family is killed, and she hires an assassin to revenge them. But there's a little bit more supernatural elements into this. The people who killed her family were going around killing everybody in the dojo or forcing them to join their gang. It's littered with crazy, weird assassins that all seem to have their own techniques, and they're kind of like... they're kind of bastardized techniques, so they don't really never join their own dojo or start their own dojo. So they're kind of like outskirts. They don't learn like others, but they're very good and very dangerous. And the samurai that she hires to get revenge, and they have obviously a brother-sister relationship as it progresses because something that happened to this character in the beginning of the film. He has this weird curse with bloodworms where he heals kind of in a similar fashion to Wolverine, not as extreme. So in a way, he's immortal. And he basically goes with this young girl, and they form a relationship, and it gets more complicated as it progresses, of course, with all these different characters. It is a fairly long movie, I think 2 hours and 15-20 minutes, and he ends up facing off against all sorts of different assassins, the first of which is an amazing bad guy. Just imagine Nightmare Shredder. He is intense, he is scary, and they do some real surreal kind of scary stuff in here, so much so that I was like, is this a dream? The one problem with the movie is they kind of feel like there's no transitions, or people just pop up and the scenes cut in, and you're just like, how did we get here real quick? What's going on? I missed something, or did I miss something, or did I miss like 5 seconds of screen time and it completely changed to a different situation here, a different tone real quick. It doesn't, the transitions aren't necessarily there, if that makes any sense. It just feels kind of like, I would say, like the movie The Barn, which I really enjoyed, but they're kind of just like, oh, we're stumbling into the next set piece. That's what I would say the problem here is. And this movie does try to pull for dramatic moments. They have a lot of characters, they have a lot of established like relationships and whatnot and drama, and they do it well. And I don't want to blame the movie for it, but I had no attachment to any of the characters. Almost like I was like, everything's going to pan out how it is. And if it doesn't, like if something tragic happens, I don't care as much, which is strange. It is gory. There's tons of death in here. Hundreds of people die. The action's fun. It never dulls down. It's never boring. Like I said, it hits all its points right. It's just, and it's entertaining as hell. I just wish I had a closer attachment to the characters and the relationship here. And there's a good mythos in here. And I like the bad guys, and I like that it gets a little bit more complex in here. And there's some good dialogue, especially by the lead in here, where at the end he's like, then who am I killing? I don't care. Government or the other gang. And that's a great line there, and he goes to town. But it's one of these deals at the end where they might have to work together to kill each other later. And I like that. It's well made. It's well shot. I love the foliage, and at times you see it in the background, and it's like fall, and you see the beautiful trees and whatnot. It's a good looking movie. It sounds good. There's good fighting. There's some good moments of comedy. Like, I meant slight humor when he says stuff like that. Definitely not out of the tone of the movie, but like I said, tonally sometimes like when they like switch to the first bad guy that he was fighting, kind of the main bad guy, it feels like it's just from like a Nightmare on Elm Street like movie or something like that. But I think it's really cool, and if you like samurai movies, I'd really check it out. I need to see more myself, but I'm not unhappy I saw it. And the scars are all like overly done and in a cool stylized way. I guess this is a manga, so you know. It says he will take 1,000 lives to protect one, and I'm not sure. I wouldn't even be surprised if 1,000 people might actually die in this movie. There's a lot going on. There's some CGI, if I remember, but a lot of it's practical. It's not like super gory, but they have bits and moments that are pretty cool. So I would check this one out, Blade of the Immortal. It's pretty cool if you like that kind of stuff.
絶対にくたばらない男がこの江戸のどこかにいる。
その男を探し出せ。
父上の敵討ちを手伝ってください。
楽しもうぜ姉ちゃん。悪いな、少し汚しちまった。
万次さん、大丈夫？
かすり傷だ。
Okay, guys, that was the Pick a Movie. Let's see who's going to be in the new one. If you want to enter the Pick a Movie, if you want me to review something, leave a comment on YouTube or Screaming Toilet, or send me a Facebook message. You can leave a question. If there's ever written reviews, they're over at the Screaming Toilet where this is. You can enter. Let's see who's going to win. You always stay in the hat until you're drawn. Then you have to re-enter. Who do we got? Peter McCain. Let me know what you want me to review. I think Bunham, the last person who won, picked the John Cassavetes movie, A Woman Under the Influence, so that'll probably be the week after. Yeah, that'll be next week. But let's hop into the Q&A. Nick, agree, disagree? The best horror movies are made by non-horror movie directors, i.e. Stanley Kubrick. I don't know if that's true, because it's hard to determine if George Romero and Wes Craven and John Carpenter always wanted to be horror directors and whatnot, or Tobe Hooper, they just get pigeonholed into the horror genre, so it's really hard to determine that. And I would say that stuff like The Shining, or even like what is some other ones out there, like Don't Answer, Don't Look Now, and stuff like that. Yeah, those, or Rosemary's Baby, those might be like vastly superior to a lot of horror movies the way they're made, but they're not my favorites. My favorites are like by Carpenter, Romero, and Fulci and stuff like that. So I don't think almost anybody in the classic director era set out to just make horror movies, to be honest. I just think that that's just what happened to them. Please name some obscure but good haunted house movies. Haunted houses are not my strong point. It's something I don't particularly care for, and all the ones I have seen are probably pretty average. But I mean, I like Amityville 6. That's not obscure, but I don't hear anybody talk about it. It's the one with the clock. Whichever one's the one with the clock. And I like Burn Offerings. I remember liking that one. I wouldn't say it's obscure, though. When making a movie yourself, what would you prefer? Loads of cash, but constant interference by money men or women? Or limited budget, but total artistic freedom? How limited are we talking? Like $20,000? Yeah, I'll take the unlimited. That's $20,000 or something. I'll take that. I mean, if you're like $20 million, but basically you're just the guy that says cut. No, I'd rather have the $20,000 and make a fun, cool movie. Skip, you mentioned watching movies with your family several times when you were younger, and you have mentioned that you were very close to your late father. My question is whether your mother or father's taste in films influenced your own likes and dislikes. And they probably did not watch indie horror films nonetheless. I made them watch a couple. Just like, I remember they watched Manson Family. I had them watch that. But they didn't typically watch the indie stuff. I mean, I would rent stuff occasionally when I was very young. But, I mean, everybody that you grew up with or you're around a lot influences what you watch, to be honest. Let's face it. My grandfather was a big movie fan, and he used to bring down tons and tons of Universal horror movies. So that affected me to love monsters at a very young age. My father loved Westerns, and he liked, a lot of the movies that he told me to watch young, like Hard Times and Emperor of the North. I have soft spots for Death Hunt. And when I actually did watch them, I was like, oh, these are really cool. I know why I liked them. And, my mom always loved Stephen King. So, stuff like that. Like my Aunt Judy maybe watched The Lost Boys young. There's just a lot of people. Sometimes a friend would bring something over and you'd watch it and you'd get hooked on it. So the people that you grew up with or the people that you're around do influence the movies that you like and whatnot. So yeah, for sure. Jason Callan Shark Tag. He tagged me in a movie tag. Jason Callan has a YouTube channel. If you like food reviews and movie reviews, check him out. He's a nice guy. Do you like shark movies and why? Yes, I do. Because they're fun, and aquatic horror is terrifying because you don't know what's underneath you, and the ocean is a very undiscovered place. Best shark movie ever made? It's Jaws. What is the worst shark movie ever made? I don't know. I'm sure I haven't seen it. I'm sure it's one of the sci-fi originals that I avoided on purpose. What is the silliest shark movie ever made? That I saw? I don't watch any of the sci-fi ones, but Monster Shark's pretty silly. Deep Blood's pretty silly. Cruel Jaws is really silly. That's the worst one I've ever seen, probably, is Cruel Jaws. What is the silliest title for a shark movie? It's got to be one of those Sharknado or like any of those. Just any of them. Sharknado's enough. Any of those titles. Are you looking forward to seeing The Meg and any future Sharknado movies? I'll watch The Meg. I don't know how excited I am to see it. I like mostly the crazy aquatic horror stuff, like the older ones. Like, I just recently watched The Endless Descent or The Rift with some friends, and yeah, that movie's ridiculous. But yeah, stuff like that. I'll watch Meg for sure, but I'm not interested in any of the Sharknado movies. It's not my thing. It's not really my thing at all. You know, I said this before, but I feel like they're celebrating failure. Like, that's why I don't even like Attack to Killer Tomatoes, because it's like bad on purpose. Like, if you have a like limited budget and you're silly, you're probably going to have a lot of bad stuff in it anyways, and people will forgive it if it's got heart, and they might enjoy it more so. But if you purposely go out there to be over the top or bad, it's just not for me. It's just not something I like. It's like celebrating failure, and I'm just not into that. Okay, let's hop into the update, and let's see what we got. Okay, guys, here's the update. Let's start this one off with a bang. Last week, I was talking crap about Steven Seagal, so naturally, I got some Steven Seagal Blu-rays. This is the triple feature. As much crap as I talk about Steven Seagal, there's no doubt that Under Siege 1 and 2 are some of the most fun you'll have for an action movie. I love those two movies. It's been a while since I've seen Above the Law. I think I've only seen it on television. But this triple pack is like $10, $11. Can't beat that, brand new. I love these little triple packs because they're all triple packs because it has all three of the discs in there. This is a perfect space saver. I don't need all these on individual disc. I think I still need to probably pick up Marked for Death and Hard to Kill with Steven Seagal on Blu-ray. Figures in the Landscape. This was recommended by Extro the Mutilator. He couldn't say enough good things about this one. Robert Shaw, Malcolm McDowell. This is from the Kino sale. This came in. My third order showed up before my second. The second one still hasn't shipped. But yeah, Figures in a Landscape. Looks pretty cool. Can't go wrong with Extro. Zero Population Growth. Oliver Reed. Come on. Kino here. Sci-fi. Love Oliver Reed. And I've had this one in my basket about half a dozen times. Some sort of science fiction futuristic deal here. And we have Unforgettable. This is more like a thriller kind of horror deal. Ray Liotta's in here. Linda Florentino. I remember, wasn't she always constantly nude in movies during the 80s and 90s? But Ray Liotta, you guys know. Goodfellas, another Kino. We got Solarbabies, had the old MGM DVD, never watched it. Now I have the Kino Blu-ray, which hopefully I will actually watch. It's kind of like a family-friendly, maybe kids kind of science fiction movie. Probably PG-13, I'm not 100% on that. Then we have The Skull with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. This looked cool. I believe this is by what, Freddie Francis or Terrence Fisher, one of the heavy guys who did a lot of the Hammer stuff. But yeah. I love Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee. I love Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. They can do no wrong. So Patrick, who's that in there? Widmark's in there too, so that's cool. Yeah, 1965. I'm not sure. Patrick Widmark's one of those names that I hear, but I can't register it right away. The Rosary Murders with, this is another Kino with Donald Sutherland and Charles During. There's another one that came out was like a priest slasher thing. I know there's one with In the Name of the Rose or something, Sean Connery. But there's one called Mortal Sin, which I had on VHS with Christopher Reeve. And I know I've seen one of those movies. I think it was either this one or Mortal Sin. But yeah, love Donald Sutherland. Then we have The Last Embrace by Jonathan Demme. This has Roy Scheider in it. Yeah. Picking up some weak spots in my Roy Scheider collection. So there we go. The Last Embrace. This one looks fun. Vincent Price, Tab Hunter, War Gods of the Deep. I love Vincent Price. Can't go wrong with Price. So, yeah. Another Kino. And then we hit the home stretch, the last three Kino ones. The Seventh Continent, On the top it says that a lost world shut off by the wall of ice, roamed by beasts unknown to science, ruled by men lost to history, doomed to vanish in chaos of leaping flames. The people that time forgot. I heard these ones are super fun. These, what is it, Doug McClure kind of, you know, fantasy movies. This is another Kino, The People That Time Forgot. And what would it be without The Land That Time Forgot? Yes, I've not seen any of these, believe it or not, but they look like a lot of fun. There's supposed to be 4 of these. I know that Kino released 3. I grabbed the 3, and what's the last one? At the Earth's Core. And there's another one I imported from UK DVD, but I haven't got it yet. So maybe a future a quartet is in my future here to watch all 4 of these. But I appreciate it, and back to the video. Appreciate you guys watching. Now back to the video. Okay, thank you very much, guys, for watching, and you guys, as always, have a good one. Hey!